Hey, good morning, guys. Lot to say. It's December 15th. So, a couple things. December 15th, Chambers is in 2 Timothy 2, verse 15. Study to show yourself approved. Um, Rightly handling, dividing the word of truth. We've heard this scripture before. And so it's really, really critical. So, on that note, something that I had mentioned before, which was Matthew chapter 17, I believe. No, Luke chapter 17, Matthew 24 is the same. Luke 17, do you remember, guy? I told you guys a couple days ago, what does this mean? Where there's a corpse, the vultures will gather. And it's right on the heels of this warning of being careful, being mindful, being um, the. It's Jesus saying that one will be taken, one will be left. This idea of when the man of lawlessness is revealed and all these things, these end times things start happening, be really, really conscious and awake and keep your eyes open. And that really, really um, that's very relevant with today's passage in Timothy. But where the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Jesus says this when the disciples ask him, wait, what are you talking about? And I got it. When I finally made the connection, I was sitting in church, and I feel bad because I wasn't listening to the sermon at the moment, but I was sitting in church and I was realizing that Luke 17 and Matthew 24 were the exact same teachings of Jesus, and there's probably another one in one of the other books, one of the other gospels. But and I went back and forth and back and forth, and it's basically saying, be careful not to fall asleep as the church. Don't stop being on your guard, because when these things start happening, even the elect, if we're not careful, there will be signs and wonders. The deceiver will actually be doing signs and wonders in places, and if we're always chasing signs and wonders, we're going to be, even the elect would be scattered, would be lost, would be deceived. And so we really need to be on our guard, and the other thing too is not counting on this rapture thing to happen prior to any tribulation coming to the church. The church will face tribulation. The church will face all kinds of persecution, and if we're not ready for that, if we're thinking that that's not going to hit us, and that the Antichrist is going to rise after we're gone, we're going to be in jeopardy, in peril of being lost. So anyway, all that said, um, the corpse is the dead church. The vultures, those who would sit down and eat. The corpse is the church that has died, the people that have been lulled to sleep and no longer chew on truth. And that's today. Today, Chambers and Paul, talking to Timothy, is talking about taking truth and working out truth, rightly dividing the word of truth, Paul says. Anyway, we can talk about that some other time. If you guys ever want to talk to me about what I think about the rapture, this pre-trib rapture thing, and I think it could be a really damaging teaching if we're not careful. So anyway, Chambers says, in response to Paul's instruction to Timothy to study to show thyself approved, a workman that needs not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Chambers then says, if you cannot express yourself on any subject, struggle until you can. I think this is the lulling to sleep of today's intellect, the intellect of the church. I'm really concerned sometimes when I see people that just have stopped wrestling with Scripture. And then, by the way, Paul says, be really, really careful. Let's go back in chapter 2. He says, don't get yourself wrapped up in these stupid arguments, these dumb arguments. And he says, no one serving as a soldier gets involved in civilian affairs. And I was just thinking, if we're serving as godly soldiers, then the arguments of the world are not for us. And I was reading this and I was thinking, man, how many world's arguments do I get involved in? And Paul is telling Timothy, don't get involved in the world's arguments. And then he says, be really careful not to quarrel about words. In verse 14, right before this passage, he says, don't quarrel about words. keep chewing on truth. Keep trying to understand it. And Chambers is trying to encourage us here to never not be a student, if that makes sense. Double negative, I get it. Never not be a student. We need to always be students, always be struggling, always be, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's a good thing in our Bible studies. If you're a Yabs person, you're watching this. I think it's a good thing in our Bible studies that we chew on truth, that we have to wrestle with it, have to bounce the ideas off of each other, not quarreling about words, but really saying, hey, I want to understand truth. Never not be a student. Chambers says, try to restate to yourself what you implicitly feel to be God's truth. Okay, so you have this, the Spirit is telling you this is true. Restate it to yourself, and you give God a chance to pass it on to someone else through you. Restate it to yourself, and then be able to articulate the truth. Paul tells Timothy, rightly dividing, and the words are to be shared. Words are to be shared. Always make a practice of provoking your own mind to think out what it accepts easily. Does that make sense? Always make provoke something that just comes easy. Provoke your mind to think it through, though. Don't say, "Oh, that's easy. I get it." Well, why do you get it? Why is that true? What our position, the Chamber says, is not ours until we make it ours by suffering. We have to work it out. We have to wrestle with it, and then we say, "Oh, I understand why I believe that now." Not understanding what you believe, having no foundational, wrestling, struggling, and concluding in your belief, in your faith, is dangerous. It's a really dangerous place to be. And so, again, never not be a student. Always be working this out. I think we should have these discussions with each other. I think we need to make sure that we're not having silly, fruitless discussions, for sure. But I think Paul is, as he instructs Timothy and Chambers instructs us, I think we need to wrestle with this stuff. I know that was all over the place, and I'm sorry, guys. It was just something that I think is really critical, especially as the world goes crazy around us. And as the man of lawlessness, I think, is going to be revealed at some point in the near future. So you guys have an awesome day.